Manga-Waido.
My name's Kota Takagi. I'm currently working as a self-employed insurance salesman. I'm the lord of my own castle. I may not receive any outside support, but that also means I don't have to put up with any interference. To be honest, I'm making a lot more money since going independent. But it wasn't always plain sailing. Looking back now on the first company I entered after starting work, it was a black company. Get these documents processed for me by the end of the day. Got it. You want a day off? You must be kidding me! If you want to get paid not to come to work, then give us results! I'm sorry, that wasn't even the half of it. Even when I did produce results, my coworkers or boss would take credit for them on a daily basis. I worked hard, but they never showed any appreciation for the sole reason that I was young. Not only that, but my days consisted of constantly being yelled at by my boss under the guise of coaching and being forced to attend after-work drinking parties where my colleagues would criticize me. What's more, I'm home. Even after work, I returned home to an empty room. It had been this way since I was a kid. As a matter of fact, I don't know my mom. According to my dad, she was a lousy excuse for a woman. She disappeared one day after filing for a divorce, leaving me behind. My father, who didn't make much money, told me, "You need to become independent quickly," and raised me without paying me that much attention. But in the midst of all that difficulty, a light finally shined into my life. My girlfriend, Ai Sonoguchi. I first met her 3 years ago. It was just after I left the company I mentioned earlier. Almost as if to escape, having finally had enough of their power harassment, I quit. I signed an outsourcing contract with an insurance company, and being paid on a full commission basis, I spent my days desperately trying to keep the work coming in. I didn't have to worry about being yelled at by my boss or coworkers, but there was also no one around to help me. If I didn't work, I didn't make money. Work really was tough back then, and every day was a struggle. In spite of that, having my back against the wall and seeing no way out, I worked desperately. I was as exhausted as a worn-out rag. At that time, I was working at the convenience store I visited pretty much every day.
Welcome!
Back then, she was a university student. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but to be honest, it was love at first sight. I went to that convenience store every day because I needed some kind of comfort in my work-saturated life. After looking for a little conversation starter, I approached her. Then one day,
Hey, are you working overtime again today?
she actually approached me for a change. It's not that we spoke about anything particularly meaningful, but seeing my chance, I stopped to talk to her, and to an extent that wouldn't make her suspect anything, I went on the offensive.
Hey, shall we slot numbers?
Are you sure?
Yeah!
After half a year, we exchanged numbers, and somehow or other, ended up dating. The time we spent together was the happiest I'd ever been in my life. We'd always go on at least 1 or 2 dates a week, and going home to one of our places afterwards and having fun drinking together became kind of a routine of ours. For Christmas, we visited the theme park, and for Valentine's Day, she made me some handcrafted chocolates. Of course, I'd splash out every now and then and treat her to some brand goods, or take us on holiday. Our time spent together was irreplaceable. However, a small shadow began to loom over our happy life. Looking back on it now, it must have been about a year ago. It's my day off tomorrow. Want to come and stay over at my place? It's your day off tomorrow too, right?
I had plans for tomorrow, so I don't think I'll be able to. I have to go now. See you next time.
Around that time, I began immediately going home after our dates ended. I didn't really think much of it when she told me she had plans. I assumed she'd probably just be hanging out with her friends. We were going on dates every week after all. To the contrary,
Hey, Kota, have you ever thought about getting married?
sometimes she'd go all mushy and ask me that question when she was drunk. So, is she thinking of marrying me? My thoughts were so preoccupied with that idea that until she said the unthinkable, I wasn't worried in the slightest. And so one day, about 6 months after that, it happened.
Kota, guess what? I'm pregnant.
What?
Right? So we should get married.
To tell you the truth, I was completely bewildered by her sudden confession. That said, I didn't want to upset her. I began thinking again after my mind had gone momentarily blank. I see. That's great news. Let's get married.
Yeah.
I know the order is backwards, but in that case, I should probably introduce myself to your dad soon.
Mm-hmm.
I replied with a smile. At the time, it was the only answer I was able to give. After that, I began coming over to my place more than ever.
Well, Kota, how does it feel knowing you're gonna be a dad?
To be honest, it doesn't feel real yet.
I guess that's just how it is, huh? So, where shall we hold the wedding? Do you have any kind of ideal location in mind?
I always seemed so excited about it. Before long, I went to her place to meet her dad. Her thoughts were probably filled with dreams about our future together. But I soon learned that the two of us would never be happy together again. And so came the day. We arrived at Ai's house. But from the offset, I was met with, "So then, Ai tells me that you're not employed with any company. You've got some nerve to think a man like you can marry my precious daughter." Disapproving remarks from her dad, who was planted in his seat. The conversation plan I'd arranged in my head was thrown into disarray, and I was so offended that before I knew it, I responded with this. "It's true. I'm not employed anywhere as a regular employee, but that doesn't mean I don't work. I earn more than most people. If you're not employed anywhere, whatever you might be earning right now is irrelevant. You're only going to end up leeching off of my daughter one day, aren't you?"
Papa, please!
Her dad continued hurling abuse at me, not listening to a word I had to say. I'd had enough. This wasn't even what I came to discuss in the first place. Just hold on a minute. What? You want to marry my daughter so badly, do you? Well then, get on your knees and beg.
No,
First of all, pregnancy and then marriage? The order's all wrong. And even worse, aren't you a high school graduate raised by a single parent?
Papa, wait!
Be quiet, I don't know anything about this freelancery business. But there's no way my daughter is marrying a man who can't even get a job at a proper company. Bring him back after he reevaluates his life choices. I tried desperately to hold back my anger, but my patience had its limits. I said, listen to me! That's what I was going to do anyway!
Huh?
Not just Ai's dad, but Ai herself responded to what I'd said.
You were going to do what anyway?
I slammed the documents I brought with me down on the desk. I'm breaking up with your daughter! I won't be acknowledging the child!
Huh? Kota, wait, what?
Hey, what the hell is this? Your daughter says she's pregnant with my child, but the child's not mine. What? You said something about the pregnancy and marriage being in the wrong order? Well then, is your daughter cheating on her partner and getting pregnant by another man orderly enough for you? That's right. I hadn't come to receive her dad's blessing for the wedding. I had come to break up with her. The documents I slammed onto the desk were a complete set of evidence of her affair.
Why?
So this is your ex-boyfriend, is it? I know everything.
Wait! The baby's yours, Kota! It's 100% yours!
There was a reason I knew I had been cheating on me. Why, you ask? I'm infertile.
Huh?
Do you know what that means? I can't have kids. Ever since the day she told me she was pregnant, I suspected she was having an affair. About half a year ago, when I started hinting at marriage, I went for a preconception health check. It was discovered that I had a condition called oligospermia, which meant that save for artificial insemination, it was almost impossible for me to conceive children. The diagnosis did shock me to some extent, but I lacked the courage to talk about it. I was still young, and I planned on telling her later on if we ever started discussing marriage. That was my thinking at the time. But Ai told me she was pregnant. Just because the possibility was extremely small didn't mean it was impossible. I wanted to believe the kid was mine. However, when I started thinking about the actual probability of this happening, I knew it couldn't be. I lost control of my work, and my life fell apart. That's why I hired a private investigator.
You mean you suspected me from the beginning?
No. I hired the investigator because I wanted to believe you. I would have married her without hesitation if I could just clear my mind of the doubts that were plaguing me, if I knew nothing suspicious was going on. I hired the investigator because that's how I felt. But my fears came true. She'd made up with her ex-boyfriend over a year ago, and they'd been meeting up in secret 2 or 3 times a week. It was just around the time she started going home immediately after our dates. So the whole time she'd been seeing me, she was also meeting up with him behind my back! It was only 2 days ago after the private investigator showed me his findings. After speaking to my family, I resolutely decided to break up with you.
Kota, it's not true.
Also, the investigator established that she suggested we get married despite knowing the baby wasn't mine. I'm dumb after all, so I'd make a perfect walking wallet. I? Explain yourself! Well then, me or your daughter? Who's the more respectable human being? What do I say? I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience caused by my daughter's behavior. You apologize too! With that, Ai's dad pushed his daughter's head down, and she got on her hands and knees before me. How can we make this up to you? It doesn't matter. We're never gonna see each other again after this. I don't need a woman who's not capable of acting like a respectable human being in my life. Oh yeah, if you want to make it up to me, how about you start by reevaluating your life choices? See ya! Having said my piece and ignoring Ai's desperate pleas, I left the house. After that, I heard a rumor that Ai was later disowned by her father and ended up completely reliant on her ex-boyfriend. Everything seemed fine until she proposed to him and they began discussing marriage. But apparently, he pulled a vanishing act on her as soon as he got his hands on the wedding fund. By then, it was too late for her to get an abortion, and she ended up becoming a single mother. Her savings hit rock bottom after her wedding fund was stolen, and I heard she leaves the baby with her mom these days while working day and night to bring in the money to raise it. But part of me thought she deserved even worse. Even then, it still wouldn't make up for what she did. I'd received quite a shock myself. Not only did I find out that I was suffering from male infertility, but I was betrayed by the person I loved most in the world. If I do meet the right woman someday, I want to begin the relationship by being honest about my infertility from the start. I may be deficient in one area, but I understand that as a human being, there are certain values that you should abide by. Until that day, I have work to do.